Hyponatremia is not a sodium problem, it's a water problem. Everything lies around plasma osmolality. So if plasma osmolality increase, there will be stimulation of vasopressin release and thirst mechanism. Vasopressin are released from supraventricular and paraventricular nuclei in the hypothalamus. This will result in the concentration of the urine and hence hypernatremia will occur. Whereas if osmolality decrease, then there will be suppression of thirst and vasopressin, hence urine dilution will occur and which will cause hyponatremia. There are some osmotically active substances which leads to change in the serum sodium. Some of the substances which does not cause any serum sodium loss because they are freely permeable across the membrane, hence there is no water movement and no dehydration. Those are urea, ethanol, methanol and ethylene glycol. But some of the substances which does not permeate easily freely through the cell membrane and so water moves out from the cells into the extracellular fluid and cause dehydration. Those substances are glucose, mannitol, glycine and maltose. Hence they are responsible for the translocational hyponatremia. On the other hand, there is another entity, pseudohyponatremia. In this case, osmolality remains normal. It's a pseudo type of hyponatremia because of the increase in triglycerides and proteins, sodium comes out low. Now, what are the mechanism of urine dilution? So, GFR, more the filtrate that passes through the glomerulus, more will be the sodium reabsorbed. So, what leads to decrease in GFR? Some of the causes like congestive heart failure, cirrhosis, or any renal disease. The most important sodium reabsorption occurs in the proximal convoluted tubule. So this proximal convoluted tubule, sodium reabsorption occurs, but this is not a diluting segment. So isosmotic concentration of the urine is maintained. In the thick ascending loop of Henle, there is just the sodium reabsorption, no water reabsorption through the sodium potassium 2 chloride channel. Hence, here loop diuretics also act here, block this channel, and they inhibit the sodium reabsorption. Distal convoluted tubule, this is also a dilution segment, sodium chloride channel, and thiazide diuretics act here. Collecting duct, this is dependent on the vasopressin for its water reabsorption. So how you would approach to the hyponatremia? So whenever you see a patient, you will call a patient case of hyponatremia when the serum sodium is less than 135 milliequivalent per liter. If after checking the serum sodium, you need to check the serum osmolality. Now, serum osmolality, as we have discussed, it could be hypertonic. Osmolality could be increased. Osmolality increased could be a cause of translocational hyponatremia, as we have discussed, or pseudohyponatremia. Pseudohyponatremia causes like hypertriglyceridemia, paraproteinemia, and translocational hyponatremia causes can be glucose, mannitol, and any contrast. And isotonic osmolality, the causes can be, say, the pseudohyponatremia as we have discussed, and you don't read the sodium here. The true hyponatremia, which we call, is a hypotonic when the osmolality is low. So normally you count, there are different values given in a different textbook, but you normally take 280 to 290. So less than this you will consider it's a true hyponatremia. After checking the serum sodium, you're checking the serum osmolality. Now if the osmolality is low, further you will check the volume status. On checking the volume status, what you need to check, if the patient has hypovolemia. If the patient is hypovolemia, that means total body water, there is a total body water is less, sodium is less. So on the basis of history, you will ask the patient whether the GI loss, diuretics, bleeding, and the signs of hypovolemia, BP will be less. There will be tachycardia, dry mucosa, poor turgor. So after checking the volume status, you need to check urine sodium. First of all, you have checked the serum sodium, post that you have checked the osmolality, and then you have checked the volume status. If volume is less, then you will check the urine sodium level. If urine sodium is more, that means it's a renal cause. Renal cause can be any diuretics, mineralocorticoid deficiency, and this can be, there are some of the causes like renal cause of diuretic, it's a thiazide diuretic. Say thiazide diuretics act on the distal convoluted tubule. So this decreases the sodium chloride reabsorption. So sodium loss will be more than the water loss. And whenever there is sodium loss, so this sodium loss is more than the water loss. So this sodium loss decreases the effective circulatory volume, and this increases the ADH release. This ADH release will cause water reabsorption more, so that causes dilutional hyponatremia. On the other hand, furosemide act on the Thecus anti-glupo family, inhibit the sodium potassium 2 chloride channel, and this will decrease the medullary concentration gradient. When the gradient is decreased, the concentrated urine formation is decreased, so hence less ADH effect, less water retention, so less hyponatremia as compared to thiazide. So this is one of the renal cause. Next is mineralocorticoid deficiency or osmotic diuresis. As we have discussed in the translocational hyponatremia, some of the osmotic substances will increase in the sodium loss, like glucose, starvation, these ketone bodies, alcoholic ketoacidosis. Next entity is a cerebral salt wasting syndrome. So the mechanism is unknown, but it is believed that there's a brain natriuretic peptide. It is released from brain, which increases the sodium excretion and urine volume. So this is seen in the subarachnoid hemorrhage. So because of the salt wasting from the kidney, volume contraction will occur. Because of the RAS mechanism, vasopressin release will occur. So hence the hyponatremia exists. Also, there is decrease in the uric acid. So this was one thing. When the post hypovolemia, you have checked the urine sodium level. If urine sodium level is more, that means there is some renal disease which is not letting the reabsorption. Now if urine sodium levels are less, that means that's an extra renal loss of sodium, that can be vomiting, diarrhea, or any third space loss through burns, pancreatitis, or trauma. Next entity is hypervolemia. When a patient, if in the given history, patient is having ascites, so here total body water is more, sodium is more, so ascites, edema, JVP is raised on examination. So these are the causes. Like as we have discussed in hypovolemia, which there was a loss, there will be history of loss, there will be decreased BP and tachycardia. But in the case of hypervolemia, patient has a heart failure, cirrhosis, CKD, edema, ascites, increased JVP. Same here, you will check the urine studies. So post urine, if the urine is more, that means it's a renal failure or diuretic loss. If it is less, there can be CHF, cirrhosis, or nephrotic syndrome. So let's discuss how this occurs. So if there is renal loss, that means GFR is less of the sodium is infiltrated to the glomerulus, less reabsorption will occur. If urine sodium is less, that means nephrotic syndrome, when the albumin is less, so volume contraction will be occurring. Similar that mechanism, RAS activation, and hence decrease in the sodium. CHF, how congestive heart failure, because of the decrease in the mean arterial pressure, the baroreceptor will be activated, activating the ADH release, dilutional hyponatremia. Also cardiac output decrease also stimulate the thirst mechanism. Hepatic failure, they increase the ascites, because of the ascites, edema, the splanchnic vasodilation, which will decrease effective arterial volume, RAS mechanism activated, ADH release. So this is a method of these are the causes of the hypervolemia. Now the last cause is a euvolemia. So in this case, total body water will be increased, but normal serum sodium, urine sodium will be mostly more than 20 milliequivalent per liter. So the causes we'll discuss. So in this case, you need to first of all discuss that urine osmolality also you can find. So if urine osmolality is less than 100, that means it's a primary polydipsia. First of all, you have checked serum sodium. If serum sodium, post that you have to exclude the pseudo and translocational causes. If it was hypotonic, that means it is a true hyponatremia. Post that you have checked the volume status. If patient is having edema, ascites, consider hypovolemia. Having a dry skin, low BP, tachycardia, any GI loss, that's hypovolemia. No such history, just the total body water is increased. In that case, you will post the serum osmolality, you will check the urine osmolality. If urine osmolality is less, that means the dilution is occurring normally, that is a primary polydipsia, excess water intake, that can be any psychological disorder. If urine osmolality is more, the causes can be SIADH, hypothyroidism, adrenal insufficiency, drugs. Let's discuss them one by one. So what happens whenever there are steroids? So steroids, they positively inhibit, if the steroids are high, they will positively inhibit ACTH and vasopressin production. So deficiency of steroid, this feedback mechanism on the ACTH and vasopressin production will be inhibited. So there will be more of vasopressin production. So there will be more of water retention, less water excretion. In the hypothyroidism, because of the decrease in cardiac output, non-osmotic release of the vasopressin, so water retention is more than the sodium retention. Then what all drugs cause hyponatremia? Some of the vasopressin analogs act like vasopressin, like desmopressin, oxytocin. Some increase the renal action of the vasopressin, like chlorpropamide, NSAIDs, cyclophosphamide. Some increase the vasopressin release, like vincristine, carbamazepine, narcotics, and unknown mechanism of the antipsychotics and antidepressants. Now, next important cause is a syndrome of inappropriate antidiuretic hormone secretion. So it's a diagnosis of exclusion. If you can't find any other diagnosis, then you will consider this. So there are lots of causes, like carcinoma can be there, bronchogenic carcinoma, some lung infections can be there, brain meningitis, encephalitis, Guillain-Barré syndrome, stroke, prolonged exercise. So there's a diagnostic criteria, as you all know. We were considering true hyponatremia to the hypotonic. If the serum osmolality is less, so serum osmolality is less, urine concentration will be more, even the urine sodium will be more, even after taking normal sodium diet, and euvolemia, there should be absence of thyroid, adrenal, or pituitary disorder. This comes under essential criteria. There can be supplemental criteria, like abnormal water load test. So if patient has taken this 20 ml per kg of water, in 4 hours, less than 90% should be excreted. Increase in the vasopressin level, unable to correct serum sodium level, hypouricemia. So cerebral salt wasting 2 had hypouricemia. So what is the difference between then the cerebral? How could you differentiate cerebral salt wasting and SIADH? Both have decrease in sodium. The main difference is in this is a hypovolemic disorder, and SIADH is a euvolemic disorder. Clinical feature of hyponatremia. So generally, clinical feature, if sodium is more than 125, there will be no symptom. Patient will be asymptomatic. Less than 120, generally symptoms come, and that patient is considered under severe hyponatremia. The causes, the symptoms can be like headache, yawning, nausea, reversible ataxia, seizures, coma. From 120 to 129, it's a moderate type of hyponatremia, and from 130 to 134, it's a mild hyponatremia. Now, the main concept, how brain volume adapt to hyponatremia. So basically what happens, as we all know, it's a hypotonic hyponatremia. So because the ECF, extracellular fluid osmolality, is already less, so brain sodium will come out of the cells to maintain that, to compensate for the hyponatremia. So moving down the osmotic gradient, water will move inside the brain cells, causing cerebral edema. This occurs within hours. It's an early adaptation. Chronically, after 4 hours, along with sodium, some of the osmolytes like glutamine, myo-inositol, they will also move out of the brain, and brain will be adapted to a new osmotic equilibrium. Now there's one entity, osmotic demyelination syndrome. This usually occurs when sodium is less than 120 milliequivalent per liter. So when patient of hyponatremia is aggressively corrected, when we are trying to aggressively correct the sodium, rapid sodium correction, increase serum osmolality. The osmolality will increase fastly, and water will move out of the brain cell such that cellular dehydration and shrinkage will occur. Generally, water moves inside the cell because there is hypoosmolality. If you are trying to correct this osmolality by rapidly giving NaCl, water will move out of the cell, which will be causing cellular shrinkage and dehydration. Oligodendrocyte injury, this will be causing demyelination in the bones, and this syndrome is called as locked-in syndrome. In this case, there is a quadriparesis, all for limb weakness. Dysarthria, only the vertical eye movements will be allowed, not the horizontal. Now, some of the conditions which predispose to this entity, it's a malnourished patients, liver transplant patients, alcohol induced injuries, patients who have alcohol intoxicated, burns, and hyperkalemia. So these patients are more prone to develop osmotic demyelination syndrome. Now next is how would you treat this patient? of hyponatremia. So if there are various ways you can learn how to treat it. So continuing this table, after confirming the hyponatremia, we have checked the osmolality, then we have checked the volume status, then we have checked the post volume status, we have checked the urine sodium, urine studies, urine osmolality or urine sodium level. Right now, how would you treat? So if patient is hypovolemic, you have to restore the volume. You have to restore the volume by giving 0.9% NS. Normal NS you are giving it. You are treating the underlying cause. If patient is taking diuretic, you will reduce the dose. If patient is having vomiting, diarrhea, so underlying cause of those vomiting, diarrhea, you will be treating them, right? You will monitor the sodium, and that correction should be less than 8 to 10 milliequivalent per liter in 24 hours because of the risk of osmotic demyelination syndrome. 8 to 10 in the 24 hours. If patient is hypovolemic, so we are maintaining the restoring the volume with 0.9% NS. On the other hand, if patient is hypervolemic, you need to do fluid restriction. So how much fluid you need to restrict? There's a one formula. So normally in the cases of hyponatremia, you need to test how much is water in the excess. So that much you need to restrict. So normally total body water is equal to 60% of the body weight. So how much water is in excess? You will calculate like 0.6 into body weight. 1 minus sodium upon 140. 140 are taking it as a sodium, normal sodium. So this much water need to be restricted. So this guides how much water need to be corrected. This guides us the correction. In the cases of hypernatremia, you need to correct how much is the water in the deficit. So this you need to give a free water. You need to give this much free water to correct hypernatremia. So fluid restriction, so you will use this formula 0.6 into body weight, 1 minus sodium upon 140. This much sodium water should be restricted. So treat the underlying cause like cirrhosis, nephrotic, CHF, renal failure, and you will give 3% NS if patient is symptomatic. Also along with diuretics and salt restriction you need to do here, because this patient had increase in the sodium too, right? In this patient, there was decrease in sodium in the hypovolemia along with decrease in body water. That is why you didn't do sodium restriction or fluid restriction. Already total body water and sodium was less. In the hypervolemic cases, the sodium water and total body water and sodium is high. So you need to do both of them restriction. In the cases of euvolemic cases, you need to do here also the total body water is high but normal serum sodium. So you need to do fluid restriction using this formula. Past that, you need to treat the underlying cause of thyroid, some drugs you need to stop, even controlling the excess water intake. Next that you will you will consider salt tablets, loop diuretics. If a patient is severe, you need to give 3% NS. So this is how you can learn and how you can treat hypovolemia, euvolemia or hypervolemia. So in this case you need to be careful about how much sodium you are correcting. So your target should be less than 8 to 10 in 24 hours and less than 18 in 48 hours because of the risk of ODS. So this is how you can learn, or there's another way you can learn, like, so if patient comes to you with symptomatic, acutely patient has come to you, acute you will consider has come to you in the 48 hours, like in the less than 48 hours. In that case, you need to give 3% NS. It's an emergency condition. So here aggressively you are giving it because patient has a risk of acute cerebral edema. So 4 to 6 in 6 hours, or the way which we have learned 8 to 10 milliequivalent in a 24 hours. So you can give loop diuretics for free water excretion. If patient has chronic hyponatremia, matlab the 2 days has passed, now patient is still having hyponatremia, you can correct in some more milliequivalents. It can be 6 to 10. So in the acute case, we have considered 4 to 6 in 6 hours. This was 6 to 10 milliequivalent every 24 hours. So this should be your target, 3% NS and loop diuretics. So long-term management also required in this patient. So long-term you need to restrict the fluid. Some vasopressin action inhibitor like lithium, diamclocycline and V2 receptors. Some vasopressin receptor inhibitors like tolvaptan, conivaptan. So they are used in the chronic hyponatremia, not in the acute. So used in the chronic hyponatremia, not in the acute. Okay, and some increasing the solute intake with furosemide. Free water clearance will be happening, and with urea, osmotic diuresis will be happening.